I hope you can see me. So I'm very happy to see you today, to speak with you, to speak with the United States in this difficult moment. So I will try to introduce me a little bit. My origins are coming from the German nations. So we have now in the families in Germany, but we are well known by Austrian history and Italy, and so we are really a melting pot of the Roman Empire. So the family makes wine for more than 850 years, so that's a long period. So we say in the family it's 37 generation. I hope it's sure. So my son will be that 38, and so I grew up with wine. So we started to drink wine when we were children. It's very small and bad glasses, and always if we smell the wine, my parents or the nurses ask me what you are smelling, and when we drink the wine a little bit, they ask what you are drinking. So for us, the wine was also a culture, education, and something very special, much more than alcohol. It's nothing to do with that. So the family makes the wine now still in the southern part of Germany. So it's my brother to run this business, and I was the number five of eight children. So my first studying was much more economics and politics, and then I'm studying winemaking in Montpellier, not in Germany, so in France. And I took over Canon la Gaffeliere in 1983, and that was a time in Bordeaux what was not the best. You know, in this time, a first crowd sells the wine for a price, a Grand Cru Glacé for a price, and a Cru Bourgeois for a certain price. There was no, if you're making better wines, you're not selling better. And that starts to change for the left bank in the 82 and for the right bank in 85. And certainly in this time, Mr. Parker was very important while he brings in that better wines can sell better. And today he's not writing more about wines, but in this time he was an important guy. So for me, very quickly, what I'm learned in Montpellier was much more about chemical fertilizer, herbicide, insecticides, and all these things. And today we are far away from all that. We think that a soil needs life. If you have life in the soil, in the end of the day, you will have life in the wine. If you have no life in the soil, if you have no microorganism inside the soil, you can never make outstanding wines. And this things changed in the 60s. I have a friend of me, and that's not a real friend of me, but I give him a name that this was the half-educated engineer, and he was arrogant, and he brings us in Bordeaux, but in the whole world, you can find the same things: the chemical fertilizer, the insecticides, the herbicides, the clones, and we start making wines not with life. We're making wines in a technical, agronomic way. But these things makes that also in the 70s, in the end of the 60s, in the 70s, very often in the 80s, we in Bordeaux, we make wine. There really was not very profound. There was not outstanding. And a lot of people speaks about 75. I don't know how many 75 you really like, you really drink outstanding. And the first year, the Bordeaux comes a little bit back, was 82, and then more and more, while they're more organized, the chemical fertilizer. So we are completely organic, but we're coming back to the thing: no herbicide, no insecticides, no products against botrytis. And if you want to bring back the life in your soil, you need absolutely to have a compost. You know, in all the old farms in Europe, we have behind the farm, you have the compost. Now I think 99.99% of the farms have no compost more. But without compost, you cannot bring life in the soil. And if a lot of people now, they try to change from, what we say, classic agriculture, wine making, and they come now to the organic way, but they have no life more in the soil, so they will lose a much of production. And I always tell the people, if you have to bring first the life back in your soil and change little by little, but if you have really the life in your soil, you can produce the same quantities than we produced before. So now in 2019, the production of Canon la Gaffeliere, la Mondotte, Aiguille was the highest production we had between 35 years. So that always tell you that we can produce outstanding, good, and in an organic way. And I think if you have the life really in the soil, you will find it back in the wine. How you can have life in the wine if you have no life in the fruit? That is a question I always ask the people. And what we can see that the wines are aging more and more, better and better. So the aging part is not, you say, some people say, when is the peak of the wine? There's no peak more. That's a plateau. If I take the old wines of Canon la Gaffeliere, we have here the wines from in some of the 40s and the 20s, but we have all the wines from 50, the good vintage of the 50, and there's a lot, 50, 52, 53, 55, 59, and 60, 61, 64 in Bordeaux, last good vintage for Canon la Gaffeliere. And these wines, they have no peak. I know this wine for 35 years now, and they are really not changing. The wines are always good. They're old wines, and old wines think a little bit different, but they are really outstanding good. So for me, the first thing and was important for me to bring back the chateau we had when my father bought Canon la Gaffeliere in 71. And well, now I have a noise behind me. Well, and then we try to then what we are doing is that we bring the wines back to a real organic way, not also only outside, but also inside. So we are producing a lot of our wines in wooden fermentation tanks, in concrete tanks, much less in steel tanks. Well, you have much more oxygen inside in the wooden fermentation tank, and the fermentation is slower. So we have no crusher in the winery. That's also full fruits. And we are working a lot in the very high in the first fermentation by a pigeage, by a pushing down system. So the extraction is quite powerful in the very first days, and then very slowly we have the time. And you know, we bring the wine in bottles after nearly 2 years. So it's very different. So we have the time. So we are one of the productions in the world that we take the time to produce our products. So we really have the time to do that. So we for bringing a little bit our wine. So I start in 83. I was here in 83, but I really take it over in 84. The first wines, and then I start in Canon la Gaffeliere. So this was this wine. So you can see it perhaps. That's Canon la Gaffeliere, and you always see in all our wines we have here our family cross. So it's nothing special, but it's only you have the 3 circles inside. So it's coming from 1100 something, and all the people ask me what means it, and as I say always, we don't know exactly. There was 3 different professor. They tried to find it out, and the 3 professor came to different solutions. So we don't know exactly. But normally the very old family crosses they are very simple, and there's only 3 circles inside. And the crown is a closed crown, while we were from these families of the Roman Empire, sovereign family, and we lost our sovereignty against Napoleon. And one of my grandfathers, he he took up, when Napoleon lost the war, he took out the second wife of Napoleon, Marie-Louise, and in the end of the day, he makes her 3 children. So the revanche, when he takes our sovereignty, he takes his wife. So that is, so Canon la Gaffeliere, and you can always see the family sign, and you will find it in all the chateaus. Canon la Gaffeliere, you know, also in Saint-Emilion, we have La Gaffeliere and we have Canon. So La Gaffeliere is a place that was the old leprosy station of the leprosy hospital outside of Saint-Emilion. That's somewhere here in the area. So this was probably built up in wood, and so there's nothing to see now. But this was the origin. Then I take over in 91 to l'Oratoire. So this is a wine on the northeast of Saint-Emilion, very much Merlot, coming more and more Cabernet Franc. Well, I like very much Cabernet Franc from our Marsal selection. And this wine is always very integrated, very round wines. So you can drink young, but also they aged very well. Then we start in 96, La Mondotte, the new Mondotte. So this is this one. That was in this time a little bit, the people speak about garage wine. So I don't like this word very much. Well, La Mondotte is a real area. So if you know a little bit Saint-Emilion, that's in the highest part of Saint-Emilion, close to Trolle-Mondotte and Tertre-Haute-Bœuf, just before the plateau is going down in the valley. And so we have here only 40, 50, sometimes 60 centimeters of soil, limestone, and then we are in the rock. Then we are in the stone, and you can find this stone in Saint-Emilion or here in the room. All these rooms are built with this kind of chalk stone. Then in 99 we take up Chateau d'Aiguille, this one. So Chateau d'Aiguille is a very difficult name. A lot of people like to spell it. Aiguille is only a needle. And aiguille is, well, it's also for French people, is difficult. Try never to spell the H. Never. Take only aiguille. That's if you have to train you before you brush your teeth, you spell aiguille 2 times, and then after 1 week you know how about aiguille. And aiguille is it's not Saint-Emilion. It's just in the right bank, just a little bit more in the east. We have the next appellation. What is the name? Is Castillon. It's now Côte de Bordeaux, Castillon. And in Castillon, it's a little bit the same area that we have the plateau of Saint-Emilion. So chalk, limestone, and stone. And here, there's the kingdom of the Merlot. Like La Mondotte is very Merlot, while Merlot and clay and limestone and chalk makes the wine fresh. Very fresh. So that is not an area for Cabernet Sauvignon. If you want to make outstanding Cabernet Sauvignon, please go in the left bank in the gravel area. But here in the limestone, that's Merlot and Cabernet Franc. And then we go a little bit out of this. This is Clos Marsalette. So Clos Marsalette is in the left bank. That is Pessac-Léognan. That's not far away from Monsieur Lafitte and Domaine des Chevaliers. And here is much more Cabernet Sauvignon, while we have gravel. And so about today around 50% Cabernet Sauvignon and 45% Merlot and 5% Cabernet Franc. So these are a little bit the areas, the wineries we have in Bordeaux. There's also a participation in Chateau Guiraud in the sweet wine with Bernard family of Domaine des Chevaliers and Planty family. They are the directors, and also the main shareholder is the family of Peugeot. You know, the cars of Peugeot and the pepper miles and so on. So this is our activity in Bordeaux, and then we have also investment in Bulgaria and one more in South Africa. So what we try to do in our wineries is respect of the soil, respect of the area, and if you want, it's a little bit the philosophy is welcome back to the future. So what I'm running for is that. If I want that I bring in my soil the wineries to the next generation, I have to respect the area, to respect the soil, and making wine, they can go into time. Bordeaux is well known for that we can make wines, they can age for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years and more, in a good way. They're becoming better. Every wine has sometimes a level you have not to go. If you have a smaller vintage, you drink it earlier. If you have outstanding vintage, you can drink it later, but you can drink it also early. Now, early means in Bordeaux 5-10 years for the outstanding vintages. So this is for me very important that we have a real philosophy to respect where we are, to respect the history, to respect our soils. And you know, in the end of the day, if we're speaking now about organic, that is, if you go back to the 50s, they have no herbicide, they have no insecticide, they have no chemical fertilizer, they have no antibiotics products. So they are, in the end of the day, they will never be declared, but they was organic. The same thing, I think, what's important is that more and more the people make a little bit the same things. So if I will explain it a little bit if Mr. John in America and Mr. Pierre-Henri in France, they will plant 1 hectare or 1 acre of wine. They will plant 1 rootstock resistant against phylloxera, and then they have 1 clone. So they have 1 rootstock that gives about 100 rootstock in the world, and 1 is perhaps better than another one for area, and then they have a clone. They try to have the best clone. What we are doing is completely different. We've found out from our old vines planted in the 50s and older that all the wines was selected in a different way. There's a little bit very different kinds of Merlot or Cabernet Franc. So we have our own Marsal selection of Merlots and Cabernet Francs, and you know, if you look to the tomatoes, it's all tomatoes, but the tomatoes have different colors, different. They're bigger. They have different forms. Exactly with the Merlot. A Merlot is not a Merlot. So you have Merlots. They are a little bit bigger in the fruits. They have less bigger. They have bigger branches, smaller branches. The taste is different. Also, the maturity is different. And so when we plant all mixed. Also, the rootstock are not cloned. So when we want to harvest, we go in the vineyards, and normally the people they're going in, all is a little bit the same. They say after 10, 20 meters, they say, oh, it's great, it's ripe, we go. For us, it's very different. We go in, we taste the fruits, and then we find if you want to harvest, 1 have to be really ripe, 1/3, 1 have to be just ripe, and 1 is in the middle. And the mixture of the 3 things brings in the end in the quality of the wines. It is not that all is the same, makes it outstanding, but while all is different, makes it outstanding. We have also to accept these differences. And we can see today that we have Cabernet Franc. They are 4 years now or 5 years now. They're in the blend. They are so good, while they have so much complexity that we can bring them in the assemblage, in the blend of the Grand Vin. And that was never the case in the past. So the people told me, well, Cabernet Franc, you can bring it to the blend after 10, 15 years. It's not right. If you make the good decisions, but we have to go back to find the good thing and the history and bring it in our way. We can only develop the things if we know about the history and bring it in our life, bring it in the present, and to develop it in the future. So I think that the respect about the history and brings us the possibilities to making wines. They can be very different, and they have charm, elegance, power, balanced. And I think in the end of the day, also, if you have life in the wine, in the end of the day, it's good also for you. That I think it's a very important part. That wine is something also that I think it's important for the humanity to drinking wines. And if you go to the history, all the time in the history we're speaking about wine. I don't think it's good for you if you drink one bottle yourself, but if you drink 1-2 glasses in a good way, that cannot be bad. So that's the organic winemaking. You know, a lot of people speak about that. It's organic or it's biodynamic. So we are not certified biodynamic. We are certified in organic. Well, biodynamic is the problem for me is that we are much more far away. It's perhaps difficult. We have a lot of experience. They're coming from different countries and they are not biodynamic. And we want to have this, and we don't need the system of the biodynamic. I'm not against at all. Steiner was really a very important guy, but a lot of things what he is bringing down was before. You know, if you see about the moon series, that is older than the world. But for me, what is important is that we need the possibilities to spray it to protect us in Bordeaux against mildew. Mildew is the only illness. It's a mushroom, champignon. He's really dangerous in Bordeaux, while we are close to the sea. We are close to the Atlantic. And so we have an Atlantic climate, so that can be cold, can be hot, but can be also humid. And humidity brings the mildew. And so we really have to protect us against that. And in the organic way, it's not always easy. So we have to know about that. So we have to be very flexible. And also sometimes Sunday and Saturday, there's not 3 days. We have to go out and we have to spray, but with organic products. So this is, I think more and more people will go in this way, but for them, they need really time. So our soils, we're working with them for about 15, 20 years in organic way. So we have now the life in the soil. And we are producing tons and tons of compost each year. And we're using this compost for bringing more and more life in. In the beginning, you know, if you have 10 years or 15 years chemical fertilizer, herbicide, and insect disease, there's no life more in the soil. It's finished, closed, out. And the most stupid, the most dangerous thing is nitrogen. Nitrogen, in the end of the day, is only a salt. And the salt, more you have salt, more you have water. It's always a balance between water and salt. And so if the nitrogen is very high, you're making big fruits, but no structure, no texture. And these wines going up and down very, very quick. So for me,
I just want to.
Yeah, pardon?
I just want to jump in and see if you can tell us a little bit about two wines in particular. The 2011 Canon la Gaffeliere, and then we also wanted to just briefly learn about the 2010 Chateau d'Aiguille. So Canon la Gaffeliere, just explain, you know, what the wine is. And,
so we have the first wine. We saw this here, the Canon la Gaffeliere, and behind the first wine we always have a second wine. So this is we opened this wine today, Canon la Gaffeliere, the Haute Canon la Gaffeliere. So this wine is the second wine of Canon la Gaffeliere, and that is what we say is the wine we cannot put in the first wine. So that's not a bad wine. So it's a wine normally have not the same structure, not the same color, but have very often the same profoundness in the wine. And we have now the 2011, so that's now about nearly 9 years old, and this is not a very powerful world if you're drinking more Californian wines. This is very, very elegant wine. So I will take. So this is always still a wine. It's very fresh. It's a little bit underground. It's a very nice. Smart. You can find also a little bit from a bread toasting. Very typical. It's a lot. I think it's a lot of Cabernet Franc inside. Very, very fine, very elegant. Well, this is now a wine really outstanding to drink now. The wines have a very nice deepness. The tannins are still here, but very smooth, very integrated. It's a very charming wine, wonderful and profound, and a very nice texture. And I love these wines. Well, you can eat a little bit, perhaps not too spicy, but if you have a good meal, that's outstanding to drink now. And it's accompanied. It's not a wine. You not finish the glass. If you start to drink this wine, you will finish the bottle. That is more the danger. And I like very much this kind of structures, very fresh, the good acidity. It's not overpowerful. I have a look before. It's around a little bit more than 13 degrees alcohol, so it's not very high, but it's always what we want to do. We don't want to have 15 degrees alcohol. That's not what we try to do. So it's a much more balanced wine, integrated, round, nice to drink now, fresh. All what you think, the drinkability. More and more people speak about it, about the freshness. And the power, but not overpowerful, not it's much more profound and not completely extracting the tannins so hard. We like to integrate well balanced. So this is the Haute Canon la Gaffeliere, the second wine of Canon la Gaffeliere, and then we have a very, very fine wine, very nice wine, the Chateau Canon. So we choose today 2010. So it's nearly 10 years old. So this is a winery I like very much. It is now a big winery, but they're making really outstanding wine. And it's not so well known. Price quality, it's a very good price for this kind of quality. While 20 years ago, nobody speaks about the area of Castillon. And more now the people come there. The wineries like also the Champagne, they have VCC, Le Chateau Certain, Le Pin, they're going there. So de Renoncourt is there. So a lot of people are going more and more to the Castillon area. Well, it is outstanding terroirs, very, very nice wine, very powerful. So the 10 of degrees, so you can see perhaps the color is very profound, very powerful one. So this is more the intents of fruit, underground. You have a very nice, profound nose. But I like very much, so you can see a little bit, you can see perhaps a little bit from, if you know about it, it's a little bit oak, but very well integrated. It's nothing too much. So if you like wines with freshness, with dominated by the Merlot, but powerful and fresh, then you have to drink this wine. So it's about 80% Merlot, 20% Cabernet Franc, and normally if you make a blind test and you bring this wine and you tell the people what it's in, how many percent of Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot, and nobody will find it. Well, the people all think there's much more Cabernet Sauvignon. There's no Cabernet Sauvignon. But what I always tell the people, it is much more important to plant the Merlot where we have to plant the Merlot, and the Cabernet Sauvignon we have to plant the Cabernet Sauvignon. And the limestone with the chalk is absolutely area. That's the kingdom of the Merlot. The Merlot is always fresh, powerful, and they have this kind of aging possibility. So if you see the wine now, they're still very young. You can't tell us it's 10 years old. So that's a fantastic wine to drink now and in the next 10 years, no problem. So this is also what we have to in Bordeaux, but we always have to show the people. If we take up a new winery like this, we bought it in '99, that you can show that wines can age So nobody when we started this business in Côte d'Castillon, all the Bordelais says, Mr. Neipperg, it's nice to do that, but if you want to be successful, you have to show us that this wine can age. So now we can show them with the 2000, 2001, 2004, and all these vintages that a wine can age very in a good way and an outstanding way, and that is very important for me. So the degree 2010, you have absolutely to need it at home. It's really a nice way. So also, if it's a little bit more open, the fruit is coming out. Yeah, very nice. So then I hope that if we are in New York again next year, or perhaps in the end of the year in October, if it's possible, that we share a bottle of Aiguille. Céline, you want to speak with me?
Yes. So unfortunately, we don't all have the wine in front of us, but hopefully soon enough we will. One last thing before we sign off or open up to questions. Can you tell us a little bit? So right now we would be in the period where the 2019s would be coming out en primeur for the Futures campaign. Of course, this year is a little unique. But let's back up one vintage. Can you tell us a little bit, just generally, about the 2018 vintage, which is going to be the next release onto the market in the fall or so? Can you tell us a little bit about that vintage and how it was for you at the properties?
So 2018 is it's certainly an outstanding vintage. Difficult to compare one vintage with another one, but perhaps a little bit between 15 and 5. I'm not sure if it's 16, but the wines, they are really very integrated, very powerful, have a deepness, but not hard. They're very integrated. A lot of people, when they was here for the premier tasting, they say it's so wonderful. You can taste a lot of wines and you are not tired behind. And you know, if you taste the wine at primeurs, if you taste the 19 now, it's real work to understand. So the 18 was easy to taste, the roundness, the profoundness, but also the freshness. I think it's some area perhaps was a little bit dry, but in some special terroirs there was a little bit dry. But in the outstanding areas, I think that was globally a very outstanding vintage. So I love very much the 18s for the integration of the tannins, from the profoundness, the fruit, and also the acidity. Well, I think the acidity is absolutely important. I think also the 18 is a vintage of the winemaker somewhere where you have not to harvest too late. Too late means also overripe, and then they think it was a time perhaps the people want to go forward with the ripeness, and I think sometimes they extract also tannins that was not the best. And you know, like your apple tree at home, or if you have fruits, that is the ripeness is unripe, and the ripeness is coming, and one moment it's overripe, and we have exactly the same with our grapes. So if it's a little bit in the overripeness, you will miss after 5-10 years a part of the drinkability of the wine. The wine will be still tannic, but it's never really what we say integrated, and the freshness is go away. So today it's for me we have to harvest in a fresh way. Not too late, not too early. So 18 certainly a very good vintage, followed by 19, also outstanding vintage. The 19 is perhaps in the acidity a little bit less than the 18. The pH is a little bit higher, but also very powerful wine. A lot of people speak about 82. I was not here in 82, so we will see. But we have a vintage like 09. People speaks about 09, possible. We cannot have the premier tasting now with the virus, and we try to bring the samples in the different countries, perhaps in the end of May and June. So we organize tasting in the mainlands like United States, Canada, Germany, England, and Switzerland, and certainly also Japan and the Eastern country. But we will organize it, but I'm not sure that we cannot travel in this time in a free way. And perhaps we can organize the premier selling in July, and if not, probably in September. But it is all a kind, we are not in the future in the moment. Each week the things are changing, and what we thought was the way for the next 3 months, we understand now that changed so quick that tomorrow it can be the next day. So we will see that.
Okay, thank you. And can you tell us, obviously we're in a very unique time right now. Can you tell us what's going on in the vineyards, how you guys are working, and how this has impacted you guys?
Yeah, the wines, they don't know about the coronavirus. They don't know the COVID-19. They don't know him. And so we are now out. We are a little bit, the bourgeon, what we say, the buds are like this out. So 5 to maximum 10 centimeters, sometimes a little bit more. And so we don't need frost. That's clear. So this will be a disaster. We work completely normally in the vineyards, but normally in a strict way. What we have to do now by the coronavirus, that we have always run what line is empty, and so the people are always 2-3 meters away from another. So they are never together. So they are being splitted, and they're never much more than 2 in the cars, and so on. And so we respect always that. What is really we completely take down, but it's normal. All what is tourist is closed, completely closed, 100%. And the administration is working, but all these people, they are working for the tourist part. They're in the moment not in the company. There's some of them, they're working at home office, but that is some of the next, the other they have the children, and so we try to organize it. Perhaps in the next weeks, when they start up to open the things that the schools are not opened, we try to have organize a kindergarten a little bit for all the children, while we have a lot of employees, they have young children. To do this in Chateau d'Aiguille, there we have some possibilities to organize something together, while it's difficult for the mothers if they have to work here and they have the children, that's not possible. So we have to find possibilities here. But if not, we are working in the normal ways. The vineyards are growing, and they are not waiting. If we are not doing the job now, we will compromise the 2020, what we don't want. So we take it in a serious way.
All right, last question for me. Guys, if you have any questions, feel free to send them on the chat. This is not related to Bordeaux. If you had to drink one wine for the rest of your life and it cannot be Bordeaux, what would it be?
I hate normally these kinds of questions, while I like so much wines in the world. So to only drink one was for me a big disaster. It is always to be at home, to never go out, to never see other countries is a disaster. But I think that we have in Bordeaux a lot of wines. They really makes in a continuous way outstanding wines. But if you have when you have the chance to drink a 47 Cheval Blanc or a 45 Petrus, these wines they 28 Latour, so you have wines, they are really outstanding, and you really can you can get them for a long time. But in the end, for me, that's always the complexity. And I like some outstanding wines of California, of Italy, of Spain, of the German white wines, and so that is. I don't want to have only one wine. It's like one time, if I'm not sure about that. Then I want really that we have to drink only outstanding wines, and only out wines that have energy. Now, you know, a lot of wines, if you drink them, they have no energy more. They are a little bit less. They have power, they have structure, but they have no energy more. And I like wines that have energy. And this energy you can feel in the wine. And so when you have a La Mondotte 2009, 2005, they have a lot of energy. These wines or the 2010 Canon la Gaffeliere, outstanding for me.
Okay, fine. We will accept that as an answer.
You accept that? You are nice. But I don't like to have only one wine.
I know, no one does. So if anyone has any other questions or doesn't, I think that pretty much wraps it up. Stephan, thank you so much for taking the time. It's Monday after Easter in France, so we appreciate you taking the time
Happy
to
Easter.
chat with us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And drink a good glass of wine. Thank you very much, Celine, for organizing all this. Thank you to Touton.